So here's the challenge. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to build a product and launch it.
Done.
You in?
I'm in.
All right, let's go.
This is the goal for Kickstarter, is to get as close to hitting your goal the first or second day. It's not like the Gary V's where it's like, just grind harder. I'm like, find a good balance. Don't get burned out. So I've talked a lot of shit on creating clothing companies, right? I'm like, don't do it. I think it's a bad idea. But I think it's also helpful to talk about what you should be doing.
All right, Lance. So as I mentioned, the challenge is we're going to build a product and we're going to launch it in the next 10 minutes.
Totally.
So the idea here is that you have so much experience in product launching. I went and watched so much of your TikTok. I researched Gravel. There's so many great ideas that you have that you've put into that content. And I would encourage anybody to go check it out after they watch this. So I wanted to put all of that knowledge into a challenge.
Cool.
So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to build a product. We're going to launch it. You're going to drive the conversation. I have some questions for you if we need to if I need to get the engine going.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that you can get this thing going right away. So we're starting, here's the premise. We're starting from nothing. Mm-hmm. I came to you with an idea. I love hats. Okay. So I want to launch a hat. I want to launch the perfect hat.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's our premise. That's it. We have no startup costs, so we've got to figure that out.
Okay.
Or startup money. Mm-hmm. Maybe, a couple grand that I have personally that I can put into it.
Cool. Easy.
And I hope this is powerful. I hope this is interesting to people that want to launch something.
Yeah,
okay?
way into this.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. 10 minutes on the clock.
All right, so right off the bat, the thing that's cool about hats is that they're really small and cheap to ship and store. So I think that's really rad. The hard thing about hats is they're everywhere. The competition is super high. So you have to try and figure out value. Like what's different, what's going to stand out in your ad when it's really easy to sell something to your mom or to your cousin or whatever.
Right.
Why is a stranger going to see this and buy it? I think that's what you have to think of.
Which is one of the things you talk about so much and so powerfully in your content is like, why the hell would anybody buy your thing?
100%.
And it has to be, okay, so here's the thing. How do we discover that? Because I think that could be a large chunk of our conversation right now is we have to figure out why people are going to buy this hat over anything else.
For sure.
Here's the problem I've found.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? So I like 5-panel hats.
Mm-hmm.
I like them to be lightweight. And the only people that I've found that make a nice lightweight 5-panel hat is like athletic companies. Like
totally.
I found this one that's Lulu that I love, and I don't want to buy Lulu.
Totally.
Right? So that's the hole that I see.
Totally.
I think there's an opportunity for something that's a little more stylish, not associated with athletics or whatever. So
totally.
That's the hole that I think needs to be filled. How do I test that?
For sure.
How do I find out if there's even other people who think that?
So the hardest part about it is this concept of like not too broad or not too niche, right? So first of all, like to start out, it seems so broad. And then the reason why the athletic hat really takes off is because it's so niche, it like hits this specific line.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, we have to find your line. Your line is not athletics. Is it style? And if it is style, what demographic of style is that? Can you hit that hard enough that an ad would actually convert? I think that's like the main concern in my head. It's you can hit that, but why? Is it like P&Co where they like their imagery and the tattooed people and everything hits so well that you're like, ooh, I want that hat. And you can hit branding super hard. Is it a specific feature of the hat? Is it, there's a lot of different
what I'm hearing you
directions.
saying is it doesn't even have to be about the hat and its features. It could be about this hat's for you because this is who you see in the ads.
Totally.
Okay.
And the hard thing is that's the hardest thing to do, right? Like the easiest thing to do is say, this hat is different because of this, this, and this.
Yes.
That's in an ad. It's easy to understand.
Yeah.
You can hit somebody hard.
That's like the route that Melon took, right? Melon was like, no sweat stains, wears well, buy one hat for however many years, that sort of thing. It was all about the features of the hat. It wasn't necessarily about who buys the hat.
Totally.
And what's interesting about that is that when I see people wearing a Melon hat, and I've owned one of them and I didn't like it, but when I see where there's no connection for me to like who they are.
Totally.
It's not a statement because that's not what Melon went after.
For sure.
So interesting.
For sure. And I'm sure that they slay because they figured out those couple points that are pain points.
Yeah.
And then people nailed those. Your pain points are different where it's like, I want this 5-panel hat. I want it to be small, thin, breathable. So is there a big enough market for that?
Right.
And I've seen a ton of those hats lately. And thus I say, yes, I think there is, because so far they all are all these athletic brands. I saw one yesterday that was Adidas, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that there is for sure an avenue there.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you want to go the branding direction, which is the hardest direction to do. But your style's good. I assume that you have like connections to graphic designers, to photographers, to things that you can link it all up.
Yeah.
And that's how it's all of a sudden going to be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
The hard part about going that direction is the usual avenues of like getting money for those things. For me, has been Kickstarter or like crowdsourcing of some kind.
Okay.
That's the easiest way by far. But those don't do very well unless you have your checklist. Those, I feel like pre-selling love those checklists of like it solves these problems.
Okay.
And it's way less about style. Still possible.
That makes sense.
How I would do it is you could still pre-sell it on your own website. So where are we? Halfway through?
Yeah, halfway through.
So the main thing about Kickstarter to consider is whether Kickstarter or your own website is Kickstarter is going to drive its own traffic. If it drives the traffic that you like and it converts, then it's great.
Yes.
If you're not going to hit that traffic, you're better off just pre-selling on your own website.
Yeah.
So if I were you, I would link up with as many people in your same, like in the same demographic that you're trying to hit, as many influencers, micro influencers, whatever you want in that direction. And then I would pre-sell it on your website, get a few samples in before that, obviously. And with that couple grand, you could bring in, for us, Gravel made a hat very similar to what you're talking about, but it's a travel type hat.
Yeah.
But it's like a thin nylon. It's a softer bill, so you can like throw it in your bag or whatever. And we were landed at about $5 a unit.
Okay.
So you could bring in for $1,000, what is that? 100? No, that's not correct. What's the math? You got math? We got a math guy anywhere? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I'm the wrong guy for math.
So $5, that's 20 per 100. So that's 200 hats.
Okay.
So for half your budget, you could even do a quarter of your budget. You can bring in a couple hundred units or 100 units and give them out to as many influencers as you can. Giving them out to 100 people and hope that they post about it, or if they're homies, they will post about it. That and pre-sell it on your site.
Okay.
In my mind, the hardest part too is it's like, okay, for pre-sales, running ads is how you can hit like hundreds of thousands if you can get ads to convert. But a hat is a really low price point typically. You're going to be in like the 30-ish range, give or take $10. And that's a really hard range to run ads on.
And ads have quite a ramp, right? I mean, you have to spend money just to make discovery in ads.
For sure.
Right? Yeah.
So your extra 1,000 or even 1,500 are toast pretty quick, like just testing your ads.
Yes.
And so that's another hard one that it's like, that's why I think more influencer out, but it also, you have to have a ton of connections to do that.
Okay.
So if I step back to the beginning of the conversation, any kind of apparel of any kind is one of the hardest things to launch because everybody wants to launch it.
Yes.
And so it's like, okay.
It feels like easy entry for some reason. I'm not saying it is, but it feels
100%.
Like it. Yeah.
Well, and that's why so on my TikTok, the most common business people want to start is an apparel company, by far. Yes. And I always say, just don't. Yeah. It's like, unless you have like massive funding, or a massive following of some kind already. And even if you have that, I have a buddy who has millions of TikTok followers. He launched his own apparel brand and literally sold like $100 worth of apparel, like nothing. Ooh. It's like, even if you have an audience, you have to hit that audience perfect with apparel of some kind.
Got it.
And so hats do fall in a little bit different category because you easily, like a hat person buys a lot of hats.
Yeah.
I have a lot of hats. I'm a hat guy. So I think it hits a little bit different than apparel. And it also is a one size fits all. Because that's the other thing. So I have three main things.
SKU variations. You don't have to have a huge SKU variation. You can really only have one SKU. You could launch with one SKU variation.
Yeah. So I have three main things when I launch or think about a business to launch. Okay. One is it's small and easy to pack. Okay. Second is not too broad, not too niche. And the third is like your SKU count. Like it's really hard with apparel because you have literally for
XS
every
to XXL.
Yeah. You have 7 SKUs for every color. So, and then all of a sudden you're expected to have 2 or 3 colors for every design.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're in it like 20 to 30 SKUs per one shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Hats are a one size fits all. You can have one SKU. You could have 5 hats on your thing. And also they're relatively cheap. All right, we got a minute and a half left. So we got to close this out a little bit.
We got to source this thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we still got to go. Okay. I didn't know we were jiving into sourcing and everything.
We're not going to hit everything, but I do want to know, like, if I've never dealt with China, or any outsourcing or anything like that.
Totally.
Let's just talk about where I would start. Let's
Totally.
do that. We don't have to run it all the way out.
Cool.
But where do I start? I got this idea, Lance. You're a good buddy, so I've run it past you. Now, how do I start figuring out how to find a source for this thing? Am I going to do American? Am I going to go overseas? Am I,
So there's a couple different ways. You can find like a blank you really like. For the style hat you're talking about, you're probably not going to find a blank.
Yeah.
And that was the same case for gravel. So I just went to Alibaba. Alibaba, there's pros and cons to it. Obviously, the con is people rip you off or can. Yeah. I've been ripped off. It's fairly common.
How do they rip you off? They take a deposit and then don't deliver, or what?
Or they just deliver crap. Like, that's what's mainly happened to me. It's like, I get it, and I'm like, this is not what I talked about at all.
Okay.
But a lot of the times, or the second way to get ripped off is they literally sell your exact design to somebody else after you. I
heard you talking about this. So you can have a third party inspect the order before it leaves the factory, something like that.
Yep.
And finding a partner who's not gonna put your thing to market before you even get your shipment.
For sure. And they also you can find great ones. Our bottom manufacturer, we are trying to source through another person, and he ended up hitting that factory up to make our same bottles. So we are actually hiring him to do that. Oh, timer.
Time's up.
Oh, so anyway, second way, I'll close out.
Yeah.
Second way is literally just go to Alibaba, find as many hats that are similar to what you might want to make as possible, send all of them the same message that just talks about like this hat you want to make. Yeah. And then and try and get pricing as fast as possible. It's a balance between their response time and pricing. You want to kind of find someone in the middle. If they're too cheap, the hat's going to suck.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done with a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And it almost always works out. Like 9 out of 10 times it has worked out great.
Yeah.
Then even of those, that last 10%, 8 out of those 10 were like pretty good,
Got it. All right, that was fun.
So that was great.
All right, so it's a tall order, obviously. We're not gonna build and launch a product in 10 minutes, but I love the dynamic. I love to be able to just get as much information right on the table. Anybody who's looking to start a venture like this, they just got schooled. Like they got so many years of experience and advice in 10 minutes. So thank you for playing along.
For sure, and I could literally go in a million different directions with that. So sorry.
So no, it's all good. Hey, thanks for joining us for this 10-minute challenge. Make sure you subscribe and like this video. If you want to watch the full interview where we dive deep into the brilliance with this guest, go ahead and click the link in the description below. Peace.